Hey everyone, and welcome to SPED Homeschool Conversations. We're so glad that you've joined us tonight. And for those of you that aren't joining us live, but are joining us on either the recorded session on Facebook or on YouTube, we're so happy that you're here with us too. And I have a special guest. Her name is Dr. Jan Vidal of Little Giant Steps, and also from the SPED Homeschool Board. And if you tried to tune in last week and missed our broadcast, you'll be happy we're doing the same subject tonight. And we have our technology working, so yay. And we've prayed a lot that it stays that way. So anyways, just before we get started, I wanted to let you know you can join in on this conversation if you're watching us live. Just type in the comments and we will get to your questions or your comments as we're going along. And also, Jan was so nice to supply a handout for this, so you can follow along as well. And all of the resources that she's going to be talking about are on that handout. So thank you, Jan, for doing that, and welcome.
Well, I'm glad to have done that. I know that it's a whole lot easier just to follow along instead of trying to madly take notes on something that you're interested in.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we all appreciate that, because probably a lot of moms are trying to watch this with, plugged into their phone, but walking around the house and doing a lot of other things, as we multitask usually and have to do that.
Exactly.
So I'm just so happy to have you here, Jan. I know you have a very busy schedule, and just to take time out and to talk to our parents about making math easier is our subject tonight. And I know that can be a real struggle, but why don't we get to know you a little better first for those who don't? Can you let us know just a little bit about your background, homeschooling, Little Giant Steps, and kind of everything in between?
Okay, well, I have my oldest was special needs, and so we tried just everything before I even knew about homeschooling. When she was 6, I found out about it, and that was back when it was almost against the law at that point.
Yes.
So anyway, God in His sovereignty showed me homeschooling, and I did that for 5 years after she had been in public school and private school. And we made some progress in homeschool, but I was about to give up when she was 15 because I just couldn't make any more progress with her. She had a low IQ, and I didn't know what else to do. And so I was going to put her in a vocational school. And at that very time, God showed me the neurodevelopmental approach, which is what I'm going to be talking about
tonight. Yes.
Basically, how to make math easier through the neurodevelopmental approach. And it changed everything for her. Her math function, her reading function, her just ability to move through space. It affected everything, quality of life. And so after that 5 years of traditional homeschooling, I did 3 more years of homeschooling with the neurodevelopmental approach. And we just saw wonderful things happen. And at that point, I was a certified teacher. I majored in child development and home economics education, because basically that's what I wanted to be, as wife and mother. But God had other plans, and He told me basically I needed to tell other people about this, because just like I had been looking for 15 years for something to help Janae, other people were looking for help for their children with unique or special needs. So here I am 20 plus years later, working with them.
We're so glad that you've kept it up, because you've helped so many parents with your work at Little Giant Steps. Definitely.
Well, it's really a privilege to be able to equip parents with things to do at home that are effective. I just talked to a family today, and they had been all over and done everything that they could think of, and this was really helping them. So it's really gratifying. If I was going to have to work, this is the kind of business to be in. For sure.
Definitely. Yes. And it's heartwarming to hear those stories. I know that because, we've both been in that place where you're struggling, and when you find something that works, or somebody that just can at least come alongside you and say, I know, I understand, I've been there, and I'm willing to walk with you through this. And so that's what's wonderful about your organization too, and as well as SPED Homeschool. We meet people where they're at. We give them the resources that they need. And but we're going to talk about math tonight, and it's a place that often kids and even their parents struggle. And so I'm excited that you're going to approach this from the neurodevelopmental approach to what's happening as a child develops, as well as the math skills that kind of connect in with those steps. And so a lot of parents may not know one or the other, or just say the curriculum should probably teach it, but that's not always the case, is it?
Well, no, it's really not. And there's not any perfect curriculum, even for typical developing kids. I have grandchildren that I'm starting to help homeschool as well with this approach. And there's just not one size fits all in any curriculum. So basically what we're wanting to do here is just to go over from the very beginning, the basics of math. And because to make math easier, you've just got to have a good foundation.
Right.
And we want to give you this information, how to build this foundation from a neurodevelopmental approach, which may be new to a lot of people. And so the overview is what I'm going to just go over first.
Yep, that's
just
great.
like the categories, so you can kind of know what to expect. And then we're going to delve into some real details of these things, and actually do some demonstration too.
Awesome.
Of
that's
how you
always good. Yes, because I think I remember that a lot better than if I just am hearing it. And I'm sure a lot of you do too. So great.
Okay, so basically what we're going to look at is three main categories. One is the skills in numbers and quantity. So in that, we're going to talk about rote counting and the one-to-one correspondence, where there's a real difference in that, because one-to-one correspondence is counting objects or things to get to a quantity. So some people get that a little mixed up, but we're going to go into detail about that. And then the abilities like visual discrimination that you need to be able to tell the difference between the numbers, like number recognition. What is a 5? What is a 6? It takes that ability to discriminate. And then knowing what a symbol is, and being able to discriminate, what a plus sign is from a subtracting sign, and sometimes the multiplication sign is confusing because it looks a lot like a plus. It's just kind of tilted.
Right, and then they replace it with the dot sometimes, and that makes the children really confused.
Exactly. And then another visual skill is just being able to look at some objects, or either objects that are on the table or in a picture, and just know how many there are just by looking at it. So that quantity at a glance, we'll look at that too, how to develop that. And then we're going to look at long-term memory. And there I see more of the math facts. Remembering the math facts. And then math application. What really is addition?
Right.
Exactly. What does that mean?
It is. Yeah, we forget that it is so unconcrete of a topic, and to have a child ready for that, they have to be. We can't just expect that they're going to progress.
Right. We have to really show them what is addition, what is subtraction, what does multiplication mean, and so that's some of the basic overview of what we're talking about tonight.
So you were mentioning rote counting. Is that where we get started?
Yes, that's really where it all begins. If you can't rote count, and that's just counting like 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 20 correctly, then you've got problems going any further than that. So one example that I did with my grandchildren that I think is a good idea is if you have steps, instead of counting all 19 steps that we had, we counted 1, 2, 3. And we
Okay.
just kept counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2,
Mm-hmm.
3, all the way down the steps. And then once
Ah,
I felt like she could really, kind of grasp that, we would go to 5.
yes.
And so, and just build on that, rote counting. Now, she recently we were going to 5, and then, sometimes they just have trouble with saying 1. They always you say 1, and instead of saying 1, they say 2. So she would say 2, 3, 5, and so I knew we were getting somewhere, but just recently, after much more input, and that's the key for me is input. Instead of expecting them, okay, now count these fingers. You count them. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the key here to rote counting, in my view, is you count all the time. They get in the car, and if you're on 5, you're going to be a little bit ahead of them. Okay, so if they can count to 3 accurately, you're counting to 5. If they can count to 5 accurately, then you're counting to 10. You're always a little, 1 or 2 steps ahead of them. This is really important for developmentally challenged kiddos, is just to keep a little bit ahead of them, but and just bring them along.
Exactly.
Right, not too far ahead. That's the key. And then, so you can do things like when you're buckling them into their seatbelt, you can just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when you get them out, you might say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just change it up so it's a little more intense. That's another neurodevelopmental tip, that the intensity can help with that. When you sit down to dinner, you can count and basically just count often. To get that rote counting. Now, one thing that follows that very quickly is, and helps with the rote counting, is counting objects. So that can aid, like I was saying, counting the fingers, counting their toes, pressing on each toe and count on the toe. Count animals when they're in the bathtub, or whatever toys you have in the bathtub. And so just count, count, count. Now, one resource that we have that I developed a long time ago is called an audio. It's like a recording. Of course, we used to call it a CD, but now these are going out, so we're using a download. And our CD is pretty unique because it's for beginners up through advanced counters. And so what I mean by that is the first track will be 1 to 5. And it just says 1 to 5 over and over for about a minute. And so there's a lot of frequency there, and different voices, and echoing, different sound effects, but it's not music. Now, can you guess why I don't put it to music?
I would think that it would just all become one thing if a child wasn't separating those steps out.
It's kind of like the alphabet and the LMNOP.
Right, and then you have to sing the whole song to figure out where you're at.
Exactly.
Instead of, just going.
Exactly. So it's not terrible to put things in with music, but we believe, as a neurodevelopmental approach, is that if you put it to music, it goes in your subdominant hemisphere where your music is. And then you have to sing the whole song to get it out. So we want it to go into the dominant hemisphere so that it just comes out where if you start at 1, you can count to 10. Or if you start at 6, you can count to 10. Or anywhere in between.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, because you can catch it wherever you want to start it. Got it.
So with this, you, again, it's one way that you can stay one step ahead of the kids by, the first one is 1 to 5. And then when they've got that, it's 1 to 10, then 1 to 15, because the teens are the hardest for most kids. Especially that 14, 15 area. So 1 to 15, then 1 to 20. Then after that, it goes up by 10s, 1 to 30, 1 to 40, on up. And then we give them experience even past 100 to 300. And then when I was telling you about the advanced counting, what we want to do is help to establish patterns of counting. And so we might have a 4-digit number series where they're counting 4,526, 4,527, and that kind of thing, so that they hear those patterns. You know, we don't count to 4,000, but we give them,
but you have to say them.
Yes. Right. So we give them this little window of numbers so they can hear the pattern of a 5-digit number or a 4-digit number or 3-digit number, that kind of thing. So that's a resource that people might look into for.
Right, and that's on your handout. There's a link to that. So if you find that either below this video or whatever video you're watching, we'll have it attached there.
And then, you know, I mentioned the frequency, intensity, and duration. That's the neurodevelopmental approach to really teaching anything. So frequency is how often they hear it. So like in a 1-minute period, they would hear 1 to 5 a lot of times. And the intensity is, it's short, but there's lots of things happening, you know, like the echoing and reverberating and things like that. But different voices, a male voice, a female voice, those kinds of things help. So parents can model those kind of things at home too. And then the duration is kind of 2 aspects. One is short periods of time, but frequently, and then over time. So how many days does it take to input that 1 to 5 until they've got it, and that's what you do, and then you move on to the next step.
Got it.
Okay. So with this frequency, intensity, and duration, you can teach anything. You can teach colors, shapes, and other math concepts just by the same information. We actually call it the 3 keys to learning anything, and
love that.
It's really true. You can, and that's a podcast or a YouTube if they want to. I think I gave the YouTube link in the handout.
Yes. Yep. It's right here.
Do that 3 keys to learning anything. So if they want to know more about that, they can then look at that.
Great.
Another thing I have listed here, Peggy, is the books, you know, that have they're number books. So they might have 1 elephant on this page and 2 of something on the next page. And that is a really good way to help with get the rote counting. And then we're working on 1-to-1 counting there. So,
because you got the images with it.
Right. And so you do it first. You count 1, 2, 3, and then say your turn. And then if you're just all over the place, what you want to do is hand over hand, 1, 2, 3, so they're accurate.
Right.
Some children, it's even helpful to put like a sheet protector over the page and get a marker, or dry erase marker, so that they can see, oh, I've already counted that one because it's got a dot on it.
Oh, yes.
So that's a really good way to do that too. And let's see. Oh, the other thing is moving objects. So if you have counters like blocks or, or something like that, and you actually move them as you're counting, so you'll say 1 and move it over here, and 2 and move it over there. That also helps with the 1-to-1 counting.
Okay. Yeah, it adds that sensory component because you feel it move with your hand. You
can see it move over to another place too. And at some point you're going to have more objects there than what you're asking for. So you might say count 5, and then they have to stop moving things by the time they get to 5, even though there's some left over here. So that's another skill. I have some things for the younger kiddos and the ones that are functioning a little bit lower developmentally. in a podcast that I did called "When Does Homeschooling Really Begin?" And that's a 2-part, and you may be able to guess when I think homeschooling begins.
Yes. Right away.
Right away at birth. Pretty much birth on is your homeschooling time. So everybody's homeschooling whether they realize it or not.
Yes. Yeah, they really are. I mean, you're teaching your kids. That's a natural function of a parent, and we've just formalized it, I guess, to say.
Exactly.
So we've been talking about things that are geared to developmentally a little bit younger kids. But what about kids who are a little bit older and maybe have some more developmental higher skills? And what can we do to be working on math with them, and where might they be struggling?
Okay, so some ideas for the older kids, if they're functioning a little bit better, are to raise the interest level of what they count. And that adds some intensity. And I'm talking about things like trucks, if they're into trucks, or if they're into Hot Wheels or Lego, something like that. I've even had some children that really enjoy counting video covers. The video the video comes in that they love, and so they're counting how many Mickey Mouse they have or whatever. Right. And then it could be rock collections or action figures or anything, really interesting like that. And then to add movement to it, counting tiles as they walk on tiles.
Right.
To make it practical, to help them to understand math is everywhere all the time. Plates and forks as they're setting the table. So you're giving them a chore and also integrating math there where they're counting.
Definitely.
Some number, and then also as they get older and they're getting more skills, you're going to want to add the number recognition. And then representing numbers by counting as well.
Yes.
So number recognition, one of the things we like to recommend to people is what we call number flash. And so I'm going to just demonstrate that for you, if definitely. You can see that. So you would take numbers starting maybe 0 to 5 or 0 to 10, depending on what their skill level is. And each number is on a different card.
Okay.
But I'm going to show you a trick. You want to turn it upside down and then toward you. You're going to fan it out so that when you go like this, there's only one number showing. So instead of this and, what number did you just say?
Yes, kind of thing. Then they're transferring from one to the other. And then
you want to get very accurate input. And so you would say 9, 5, 6, 8, 4. And do you see how I'm going in a little bit different direction? I'm putting it in a different spot.
Right.
So that's, again, adding intensity. So you're going to that spot. When you see their eyes go to that spot, they got it. And then you go to the next one. And it keeps children that are very distractible engaged.
Yes.
And sometimes, even if you say, okay, touch it before it's gone, then they're really drawn to it. And if you're finding, they're not paying attention, I'm just flashing these cards. If you say something like that, then it really gets them involved in the whole thing.
Right. They become engaged in the activity.
And you'll see that, like, there's the 2 and there's the 0. I'm not in this activity. We're not doing rote in order. We're doing recognition of a symbol in random order. Okay, so you go through those 2 or 3 times, and then you could even play a game with them where I can't do this here, but you would put 2 out on the table. And I can't put it on the table, is what I mean. Right. So you would put it on the table and you say, where's the 9? And if they point to it, you go, yes! And then you cover it with another number. And then you say, where's the 1 or where's the 0? And you go from giving 2 choices to 3 choices or 4 choices once they get more proficient with that. But the key to this is the input that they get first, where you're telling them.
Exactly, because a child shouldn't just expect to know something. You have to teach it before they'll know it. And I think a lot of times we just expect kids to just know things. And then we test them and go, why are they not learning anything? Well, we're not teaching. What we're doing is testing them. And so definitely. Now, would you recommend that, when you're doing the rote counting, not to do the number recognition any further than the rote counting is, or even do less number recognition? So like if they're counting up to 5, would you do number recognition up to 5 or maybe only up to 3? Or does it kind of stay on the same level?
The number recognition is always behind, I think.
Okay.
A little bit, especially if they get past 20. That's going to be definitely way behind. It doesn't have to be real far behind if they're doing like 1 to 5. You can start with 1 to 3 and then add 0 to 4 or 5. And it's just, the interesting thing with this is you can go at the child's pace.
Exactly.
Because if you're picking it up faster, then you add another couple of numbers and say, oh, these are the new numbers. And, watch for this one as we're flashing. So you can make it a lot of fun, and a couple of times a day for a minute can get you a really long way as far as them understanding.
That's a really, really good point, is that you're not going to be doing this all day long. I mean, some parents are probably looking at this going, what, I'm going to be counting all day now? but like you said, it's the intensity, it's the duration, and it's the frequency. And so yes, you don't have to be doing it all day long. But
no, you're going to integrate these things through your day. Like, for instance, the number of the day is an idea that we have that where you take, maybe you're working on number 5. And in our early learning foundations, we work on one number at a time for about 9 pages. And while we're working on that number, there's about 8 number 5s that you put up all over the house. And at some point in the book, it says, the detective says, find the number of the day somewhere in the house. So then they're, after they sat down and concentrated for a little bit, they're running around everywhere going, oh, there's the 5, there's the 5, there's the 5. And if you maybe move 1 or 2 of them in a different place, then they're having to hunt for it.
Exactly.
But the other key to this frequency, intensity, and duration is you put some of them in common places where you're with them. Like you might put it on the mirror in the bathroom or on the refrigerator. And then when you go in there to brush their teeth, you go, oh, there's that number 5. And so they get that frequency of seeing it again. Oh, that's the 5.
Exactly.
Now, if they already know the number, you might say, oh, there's the 5. Let's trace down, around, put on the hat, makes the number 5, just like that. Now, we have these little lines that go with our number tracing. And so if they already recognize the number, then they can start practicing, with that little skywriting to know how to make the number.
Yeah,
and it's
so kids can do that way before they even know how to hold a pencil. Yes, so that's a good way to further embed that information in their brains on how when they eventually start writing, that'll be there. That's great. And you have a download, I see, for number tracing download as well.
Yes, it's dotted for, and it has a little rhyme for each of the numbers, 0 to 10. Now I think it's just 0 to 9. that has a rhyme of how to do it, and then it shows them with the dotted line. And the thing that we have there that is pretty unique is there's 5 different fonts sizes. So one is like half a page. That's how big the font is.
So if their fine motor skills aren't really good, then you can adapt it.
Right.
Wonderful.
They can either trace over that with their fingers or have it in a sheet protector or something like that, and then all the way down to, you know, finer fine motor abilities.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So that's one thing. And another number recognition thing that I have here on my notes is that you could cut out the outline of a foot and have several feet on the floor and have numbers on top of the feet. So they step on one and they step on two. Just kind of a fun kind of thing there.
Definitely. Yep. Get them moving. It's amazing how their brain starts, you know, just coming alive when they're moving their bodies. So that's a great way to incorporate both of those things together.
I guess one other thing I wanted to tell everybody about is a little bit more about the early learning foundations that I created. It does have math, but it's basically a neurodevelopmental program. So it works on their brain organization, their processing, visual and auditory, and also level 1 has pre-writing, pre-reading, and pre-math kind of skills.
Oh, those are great.
So they're doing 2-dimensional counting, 3-dimensional counting, number recognition, all of that kind of thing. So that scope and sequence is there where you can look at that. Let me just show you one of the pages that can give you an idea of one of the skills. Like this is when we're on 15, number 15, and they're one-to-one counting correctly to 15, and this is after they put the input in for the rope counting and that kind of thing. There's patterns in here as well, but the other thing that we do, this is showing where we're accurately identifying the number and then drawing that many circles. So the next skill up from being able to count them is to be able to represent the number.
So and you're building skills for bar graphs and other things for the future as well.
Yes, and being able to, we actually take this concept and use it for addition. So when they can represent a number and then add it to another number after they have plenty of experience with this and count all the circles together, they can see what addition is. Oh, that's this group and this group together. So first we have them just represent the number by circles, and we dot it for them at first, and then later they have to do it with just having the number there. And then this is another example of here they're counting correctly the objects, and then they're writing the number.
Okay, so it's the opposite of what they're doing above.
Exactly. So we're doing both skills, and again, at first it's dotted, and then it's not dotted. So we give them plenty of help.
Yeah, definitely. You do it. You have to walk them step by step through, and and so that's great because and then go doing it forwards and backwards. That different brain functions and gets them to think of it forward and from all different angles. So we've talked about rote counting, we've talked about accurate counting and recognizing numbers. What other basic skills are there that a child needs to be successful at math?
Well, one of the things that we talked about was visually, they need to be able to just identify numbers to a certain point at least by just glancing at them instead of they hold up fingers and they go, there's 3. Right. Instead of, oh, how many fingers do you have? 1, 2, have to count them. So they go from counting to just being able to look at something and see it. So you can use dice for that. So You roll the dice and you just go, oh, there's 2, and there's 6. And so you start to recognize those patterns. And we have something called dots that we do, where we just have a certain number of dots on a page, and we help them recognize this with quantities without this regular pattern. So that's another resource. Oh, this one you have to hold back like this to see that. But just to be able to pretty much take that in and know that that's 5.
Right. Well, it almost teaches them automatic grouping. I mean, they're basically going to group and add as they do that.
So let's see. I guess the other thing that we want to really talk about is the use of math in everyday life, so that they can get lots of practice. You might say at the dinner table, how many girls are in our family? And then how many boys? So how many people do we have all together? So you're teaching those addition. If there's 5 people in our family, but one is not having dinner tonight, how many do we have? Also, you can use the plates. There's 5, count how many people and make sure everybody has a plate. So if there's 6 people and we have 6 plates, those kinds of things. And then you can also look at things like, we have 3 boys and 2 girls. What's the difference between those 2 groups? And those kinds of things you can just talk about. If you're aware of that and you're bringing yourself up to, oh, yeah, I can just implement this here and here and here, then that makes, you can do that easily. Finger math is another way you can work on this. You can say there are 5 ducks, 3 just swam away. And so you go 3 swim away. How many do I have left? And what you want to do with young children, and especially the ones that are developmentally delayed, is have very few words, because oftentimes their processing is low. So you can't build this big old story. And so we have some examples. We have a little handout. I think it's $1.99 or something, that's on finger math for addition and subtraction, where it gives you these simple little problems that can probably help people out in knowing some things to do there instead of having to come up with them themselves.
Right, because sometimes you just, your brain is fried. How do I do this? Exactly. So that's a great download, and that's in your handout as well. That's great. Now, at the beginning, you mentioned long-term memory, and I can see where that really comes into play in this. Can you explain a little bit more of how that affects math processes for children, especially like you were talking about with, multiplication facts and other things that they have to recall to be able to do math in general?
Yes. Okay. So my first encouragement I want to give to everybody is the point you made a while ago, is we can't just expect kids to know how to do it. And so so often people are thinking, when I say this particular thing, they go, oh my goodness, I must be that's cheating if I do it like that. But I'm going to recommend that you do 50% instruction. So
agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. You do a problem, they do a problem. You do a problem, they do a problem.
We do that in college algebra right now with my daughter. And I mean, we don't have the meltdowns anymore. And I mean, she's 14 doing college algebra, but we still do that because she has to learn how to do it. I can't expect her to just do something that I just show once in a book. No, we continue to do that. So I love that.
That is so great that you've got that concept, because if you think about it, it's like sitting a child down at a piano and putting Mozart in front of them and go ahead.
Right.
Play it.
Panic sets in.
What? Can't do that.
Exactly.
So if you think of it like that, you go, I'm really teaching. And the thing that's so interesting about this concept is, if you do one and they do one, and you see they're starting to make a mistake, you can stop it right there.
Exactly.
So it's not imprinted in their head wrong. And like multi-digit addition with caring, if they write 13 in the units place, you go, whoa, wait a second. Remember, only one can go there.
Right.
So you stop all that, and then just think of how much time you spend grading, circling, and having the child redo, and then
you're
they have a bad attitude.
Yourself anytime. Exactly.
No, you're not. So if you sit down, even break it up into 10 minutes twice a day, and you do that 50%, you will get so much benefit. It's just, I just can't encourage people enough about that.
When you think about a child in the classroom, and I was brought up going to public school, you get instruction, almost a full hour before you're expected to put anything out on your paper and do practice, examples with the teacher. And yet when we homeschool, we have, this little lesson, and then we just give our children all of this work to do. And, it hit me at some point. This is not teaching my child.
Yes,
so, definitely.
That is good. That's good. Well, when I did the Early Learning Foundations Level 2, when I start them in the addition and subtraction, that kind of thing, we do this 50% instruction. I'll just give you an example of the page that we have. Can you see that okay?
It's a little blurry.
So, let me see.
There we go. Yep.
Okay. So you see, I have a pencil on one side and a dot on the other side. That means the parents are to do one, and the student is to do the other one. And so we give them lots of room, not very many problems on the page, so that they can really be successful. I had one kindergartner say, I just love my Early Learning Foundations. And I said, well, what do you like about it? And she said, well, the mom does this one, and the kid does this one, and the mom does this one, and the kid does this one. She was so excited that her mom was involved with her. So it can be a real bonding kind of thing too.
Yes,
so
definitely.
That level of Early Learning Foundations is kindergarten skill level. So whatever age the child is, we've had a number of people using that for children with Down syndrome and autistic, and they're getting more than just math. They're getting that foundation that they need so their brain works better.
Right, because you've built in multiple concepts into each of those boxes, and I love that, the relational concept, of going back and forth. And I just about fell over when my daughter asked me, not last year, but the year before, Mom, I don't want to watch videos anymore. I want to do math with you. And I realized it was, I want that relationship back, that time that we spent together doing math. So I grin and bear it, and we do math again together. But those videos were awfully nice. But I have to tell you, parents, if you're able to do it, and your child really desires that, it is so worth that. You do connect, like you were talking about, when you teach, and it's something you can't get back. I know that now that I have 2 adults that have graduated already. I'm savoring this last one. So
we live and learn, don't we?
Yes, definitely. So much.
Well, and there's other concepts that you're going to want to teach in math besides just addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, that kind of thing, and fractions as they come along. But I was going to encourage everyone to just really ease into things. Like, for instance, that this is our clock flash. And so at first, there's a whole set that is just o'clock, and then you change to 30.
Then you go to the 30s.
And so you do the same flash like we were doing with the number recognition, where you just on. So you just say 9:30. When you hold this one up, you say 6:30, and input like that for a minute or so. And then once they've got the o'clocks, you add the 30s. And then there is a resource there if you want something like this already prepared that goes through o'clock, 30, and then the next set is 15. So it would be 6:15, and then the 45. And once you get those basic recognition of those key areas, then you can add those other, to the 5 minute, to the 1 minute.
Right.
And make that happen. And then just another trick that you can use, this is a ruler. Can you see that? This just has 1 inch on each one.
Okay.
So you measure to the 1 inch first, and then you add another ruler. Most rulers have 16 different.
Yeah, and they get so confusing for the kids. So that's nice that you're adding a piece in at a time. Right.
So you do the 1 inch and then add the ½ inch, and then they get the understanding of, oh yeah, that's part way. It's more than 3, but not quite to 4, and then you can move on from there. The same thing can be for like liquid measure. One of the things that is really easy to do, it's kind of messy sometimes, but get a big container of water and get a gallon and get a ½ gallon and a quart and a pint and a cup, and then they actually pour it in there, and then they record how many cups is there in a pint, and get some experience like that. And you know how kids love to play with water.
Exactly. So bath time or summertime, that's always good.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So a few thoughts about different areas besides just the math operations themselves.
So what are your thoughts on math facts? Memorizing and all of that.
Well, it's interesting because I feel very strongly about math facts. It's really foundational. It's just I could not believe it when I heard recently that the schools were not even teaching math facts anymore. It's basically just, if you can figure it out somehow, then it's fine.
Got a calculator, right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And
not always, well, I mean, yeah. I guess they just figure everybody's gonna have a phone on them, but it's so much easier if you already got them in your brain.
Exactly. So you use them all the time, and just think of how much easier your math time is going to be if you know your math facts. Exactly. I mean, how many are just, we call them careless errors oftentimes when they write the wrong answer, but it may be just a long-term memory issue where they didn't have that fact stored.
Exactly.
And you have to have them go back and do it again, and it's just it's really important for them to know their math facts.
Well, one thing I've noticed too, when my oldest is very gifted in math, and he always did the easy stuff, the math facts, perfectly, until he got to the longer things. And even though he knew them, he just said, I know those. And so he would go through them so fast that he would get them wrong. And so slowing those really fast, those 2E learners that, often think this is my good subject, so I'm just going to whip through it fast, just to slow them down, because they can think I got this, and yet they really don't. Because he would always get the complex parts of the math wrong, even though he already knew the math facts, but he would just rush through them so quickly. So little extra thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's oftentimes it gives them a kind of a bad attitude if they miss them and they have to go back, and
exactly.
it's just really it's really hard. And we are notorious in our society for the crazy thought of, like Mozart, you hold up this card and you say, okay, what's the answer? And then, we're again asking for output before we have the input. A lot of
exactly.
So it was through the neurodevelopmental approach that I found a way to help Janae know her math facts early on. And she was taught with this approach that we call, it later became rapid recall. That's the full program that we have to help them know their math facts by giving them 5 math facts 14 times a day for 5 days. So they see them, they hear them, they say them, and they write them 14 times in a day. And all of 12 of those are input, and only 2 are output. So by the time you've had 60 inputs by the end of the week, you know those math facts. Well, she was taught this when she was 15, and she has quite a low IQ, but she loved math, and she got her math facts addition. And I thought, this was about 15 years later when she was in her 30s. I said, I'm going to see if she can still do them, because, it's been a long time since she had this in school. And so I gave her a math fact page to do, and she could do 39 in 1 minute.
Wow.
39 addition facts in 1 minute. So they were just popping out pretty quick. We call this rapid recall, and we do 5 math facts at a time. Can you see that? So you've got 2 reciprocals.
Okay.
And then one that's a double. And they hear them for 2 minutes, and then they write them on this discovery sheet as they hear it. So instead of putting
so you're doing auditory, visual, covering all of those.
Yes, they have to write the answer. And I started to, there's a lot of games if they can push the answer and shoot the balloon or whatever. But they have to know the answer to be able to do that.
Exactly. Yes. I was talking with a software developer a couple months ago in an interview and talking about math. And she says there's very few games that will teach a child their math facts. There's tons where they test them. So you have to be very discerning about those math programs, because they do not teach. And I can imagine, you were talking about this, is kids get anxiety, and this takes the anxiety out if you're giving the answer while you're doing it, only requiring 2 answers and everything else is being given to them.
Right.
So,
right.
Because a lot of kids with special needs already start with lots of anxiety. So it's good.
Yes, exactly. And I had twins that were autistic, and the mom said they hate math. They just hate it. And she said within 2 weeks of doing this, I can do math. I know how to do it. And they just had a huge turnaround, because they listened to recording and it says it to them. And again, we do some different sound effects, like all of a sudden into something, sometimes your mind starts to wander.
Right.
Well, after a few of these math facts happen, like somebody will say, now say the word banana, or something weird like that. Or there might be a sound like a a cartoon sound with somebody splashing through water, just anything to go, what was that? And now they're listening to math facts again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2 minutes. And then they do a flash like we did with the numbers, but it's the math facts with the answer on them. So they're reading the whole thing. They get the information they need. Then they listen again and write on the discovery game so that they are hunting for it. It's not in the same order that it was given. So they have to hunt in this row. Where is it? Then they find it and write it. And they also understand the, the reciprocal operation of addition, where it doesn't matter if the 8 is on the top or if it's on the bottom, it's still the same answer. So after they've done all that, then we do what's called the speed drill, which is the traditional thing you're used to, put this in front of them and go faster, do this faster. Well, we equip them to do that faster because we've given them all the input.
Right.
And they're only tested after they've had a week of input. So that makes a huge difference in their attitude and then their ability to be able to get it out as well.
Right. Definitely.
So we've got all the different operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And I just wanted to show you what God showed me about the division is to show it all different ways. So fractions.
Yes, because it becomes so confusing after you've taught the one for so long, and then they can't discern that, especially the fractions.
Yes, and when you get to fractions, they go, oh, that just means divide.
Yeah,
exactly. That is that was definitely a God thing. That He showed me that, and even reading division, the different ways. Do you start under the bracket, or how do you read that? So we have to practice reading all the different ways as well.
That's good. Yes. Because there's a few different words. I know my daughter got really tripped up on that. Do you mean multiply or so yeah, you've got to use all the different words that function goes with. Otherwise they get tripped up when you use something different, but yet it means the same thing.
And that's what we do on that recording. Sometimes we'll say equals or is or altogether, different keywords that they can use later in their math, the word problems, which is a huge issue for a lot of the kids. And the word problems is a lot of times if they have trouble with word problems, it's the processing that's an issue. So we're going to talk about that on another time. Really, actually, next time we talk about phonics, that processing will come up, and we can talk more about that as well. But some people don't know if their child is doing okay with their math facts. They're kind of okay, but I don't know. So in the handout, there's a math facts assessment.
You've got a link for that. Yep.
Yeah, and that's what we did was, give a 1-minute assessment and then compare the score of what was correct with the age or grade level of the child, or a grade level that they're functioning at, and then you'll know whether they need to do extra help on math facts or not.
That's great. Yeah. So many math curriculums use skip counting. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I really like skip counting a lot to help develop the skill for multiplication, because we show them a visual way to do multiplication, where just like we did with addition, where we use circles, we use circles of groups. So if we have 3 circles and we count by 5s, then it's huge. So our skip counting is a lot like the counting that we talked about earlier. There's different voices, echoing, reverberating, but no music.
No music, exactly.
And it goes over it a number of times in a 2-minute period. So they can listen to that CD a couple of times. And usually in a week, if they listen to it 5 days a week, they know that series, and then they move on. One other thing that we do a little bit different is we do it in a specific order. Like we'll do 10s and 5s and 2s.
Okay.
Then we go to 4s. Because you've learned the 2s, and now you're just dropping off 1 in that sequence. So
it's most will hop to a 3. So that makes sense.
Right. So we do 2s and 4s and 8s. And then we move to 3s and 6s, 9s. And then 7 is last. Okay. So a little bit different there.
Yeah.
And it's not to music.
Yes, exactly. So, the decimal system also is sometimes a real challenge for kids. Do you have any help in that area?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to teach that. But one thing that I saw in a school that I visited this summer that I thought was really cool to have that frequency is to have 2 containers, and you're going to count the days. Every day you're going to put a new popsicle stick or art stick in the 1s container. Okay. And then when you get to 10, you're going to bundle that and put it over in the 10s. So you will have a little thing that says 10s, a little container, and 1s. And then every day, when you get to 15, you go, oh, there's 1 10 and 5 1. Yeah. So just you do that for every day for several months. You've got a really good situation there as far as understanding conceptually. Oh, when we get to 10, we've got to move them over here. That only goes to 31, of course. Right. But
but you could do that you could do it with other things after they get that concept,
right?
With just the days of the month, and that can start when they're rather young too. They wouldn't even have to really understand what's going on. It's just when we get to 10, we move to here. So
right. And then I have part of our Early Learning Foundations Level 3, which is our first 3 curriculum. We have Decimal City. And that is a story that God gave me about a city, and the units are the no names. They don't have any last name. You just call them 1 or 2 or 3, and they live on. And then the 10s are the T's, so 4T, and then the hundreds. But you actually build the city. So there's ordinances, they have town hall meetings, and the 1s have to have this microphone, and the 10s have this microphone, and 0 stays there just in case they want to talk, from that part of the city. So it's kind of a fun thing, and they very manipulative so that they can actually build it and see when you say 200s, this is what it looks like, and when you say 2, this is what it looks like. Right. So that's something that's a resource that some people might want to look into.
That's great. So what if your child is, kind of behind in math concepts, and sometimes you feel like you're, just dragging them through the math curriculum, which I don't recommend, because I ended up going back 2 years in math curriculum with one child because I drug him through and then realized we missed a whole lot of stuff. So what would be your advice?
Well, in that instance, see, what some people think is if I go back 2 years, I'm still having to do every page.
Oh yeah, no, we didn't do that. But
no, I figured you probably didn't. But sometimes people think, oh, they've missed things, and we're going to have to go back all the way through. So it takes a lot of time. And what I created is something called visual circle math, and it basically goes from kindergarten through 5th grade as far as skills. It doesn't have the peripheral things like the other curriculums, full curriculums that I did. It just does basically what is addition multi-digit, and shows it visually so that they can see it. And again, that 50% instruction, and you only stay on a step as long as you need to.
Exactly.
So, and yes, which works really well. So there's a mastery page. I don't know if you can see this too well, but there's different problems on each page. We're going to do one of everything, or maybe 2 of everything that we've done in the past, but concentrate on the current one. So, a lot of curriculums, they'll do addition, then they'll drop that, and they'll do subtraction, and they've forgotten addition.
Exactly. And it should be cyclical. It should be coming back around so they don't forget it.
Right. So that's what Visual Circle Math does. It just lets you start wherever the weakness is and move them through quickly so that they don't have to do a lot of, I don't believe that they have to do 15 or 20 of the same kind of problem. Just
I don't do
a couple every day.
Yeah, exactly.
and that gets it. I don't know if you've seen this, but I really like this math lessons for a living education.
I've seen the books. I've never looked inside them.
We do have, I just found them recently, and if I had commissioned my next level, everybody asked me where level 4 is. I thought there's so many things out there. I don't want to do level 4. And so this is, if I can show you, can you see that?
Yeah.
See how big the problems are? Yeah. And there's only like 1 of each one or 2. And it's just like you were talking about, cyclical. It goes back around. Let me see. I had another page marked here. Just not very much on the page for them to do. And then you do things like this for with that 50% instruction. Math goes quickly. Their confidence goes up, and it just all works a whole lot better.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. So is that something you have for sale on your website, or is that just something you reference people to?
We do carry that. There is a link there at they can look at it on our site, and we carry. Oh
yeah, I see it in your handout too.
Now level 3 and up, 3 through 6. And because the Early Learning Foundations brings them out into 3rd grade math with a really good foundation. So we just start with level 3, which is really grade 3.
Okay.
For them.
All right. Well, we are definitely over our time, and I really thank you for bringing all these concrete examples for families. These are things that people can do right away. It's not like, just order this curriculum and wait until you can get everything in line. Those are things. We can just start talking about them, and the flashcards. I love that, and just even working 50-50 on things and see how they go. And definitely check out all of Jan's resources. Your website has so much information. You've got good podcasts. You have so much good stuff on your website. Free assessments on there that you can use, and downloadables that are really inexpensive too for parents to access. So lots of really good things, and it's littlegiantsteps.com.
Yes, and if I can tell you one thing right quick that we're just really excited about.
Yeah, definitely.
What's new really at Little Giant Steps is I'm finding that consulting with people is really something that can really help them, because they don't know they go to the website and they go, oh my gosh, there's so much. Where do I start? What do I do? What's the best thing for my child? What can I afford? All that kind of thing. So we've started some consulting that we want to let people know about. And so they can just be watching for that. If they want to be on the newsletter, that information will come out. But what I'm looking at is really having a detailed history form that I can, at a glance, really get to know the child, talk to the parents for about an hour, and then help design their math and reading for them to really get them on a good start. And then I'm going to do some group consulting along the way so that they can just ask questions as a group, because oftentimes, something's happening at your house that can help somebody at somebody else's house.
Exactly.
And so we're going to be doing some of that as well. So I just wanted people to know about those new things that we're doing. We're always trying to figure out how to be able to make parents be more successful.
That's awesome. Yes.
That's our goal.
Definitely. And you're so good at that too, Jan. You and your team are always looking and on the, trying to figure out how to do that next thing that parents need. And I really do. Community is so important. And, it's something that we're working on too with SPED Homeschool to get parents connected with one another. We become so isolated, unfortunately, with homeschooling our kids, and having that groups and even just one person to talk to who gets you is a lifesaver. Definitely.
It's a huge, wonderful mission that you're on, and that you're providing such a service. I'm so excited and proud to be part of what you're doing here.
I love it that you're a part of this. So, it's that one of the benefits on my end is I get to work with this wonderful board of directors, which Jan is on. So, and an awesome team as well. So, but yeah, we love what we do, and we do it because our kids and their issues brought us to it, and God just used it to bless others. So
that's that comfort that we received. We want to give to comfort others.
Definitely. Well, yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Jan, again for your time. And I know we had planned on doing 2 broadcasts, one last week and one this week. We got to one this week, so we'll have to plan something in the future to cover the phonics that we missed tonight. But definitely we'll do that out as we're scheduling out this year. So I just want to thank all of you for joining us. And next week we have Allison Bruning joining us from Academic Warriors. It's an online homeschool school, and she is the principal, and we're going to be talking about understanding autistic and gifted learners. So that's going to be a great topic as well. But thank you all for joining us. We're going to keep the conversation going in the SPED Homeschool support group here on Facebook, and also be watching. Our website is changing over to a brand new platform. It's very wonderful, exciting, colorful, and that should be happening in a couple weeks if I continue to keep up with all the pages I have to rewrite. So thank you just for all your patience. You can find all the resources still on our old platform. We'll make the switch over hopefully overnight sometime in the next couple weeks. So thanks again, Jan, for joining us. Thanks all of you.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you again next week here on SPED Homeschool Conversations. Bye, everybody.
Bye.